Hello, Marvel gaming fans. Today we're going to look at the timeline for the extremely popular Marvel Spider-Man gaming universe. Now, this will include crossovers with the books, the comics, even the movies. So, this is the first time I've done something like this. I'm sure it's not perfect. I wish it was, but I'm sure it's not. So, leave in the comments if you think anything's wrong or should change. I'm very open to it. You know that I read and respond to every comment. So, be brutal if necessary, but let me know what you think. Also, I want to shout out right up front to Corbino the Extino. Dude, I could not have done this without you. He took screenshots of the missions. I went to a day-by-day breakdown of the missions. Amazing, dude. You are a rock star. Thank you so much. Also, I should mention, I will have to talk about some of the missions, obviously, to discuss the timeline. So I guess you could argue those are mild spoilers, but I'm going to avoid any big time spoilers, like what happens in the missions beyond just saying, hey, this mission happened on this day, etc. So I'm just letting you know that up front. I guess if you don't want to know anything about the games, you probably shouldn't watch the video. But otherwise, I promise, no major spoilers. So with that in mind, let's dive right in and see what we can find out. All right, don't forget, we do have an October contest running throughout the month. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber, leave a comment. 5 random winners will be announced on a video in early November and can choose between one of the books or steel books above. Best of luck. Okay, so for the most part, we don't have any major flashbacks before the timing of the universe itself, but this one is so specific, it's impossible not to mention it, right? I mean, they give us the date, 9/17 of 86. It's the Martin Lee Mr. Negative incident. I'm not going to say anything more about it because, again, I promise no spoilers, but again, they gave us a specific date. You got to call it out, right? All right, so the first major thing is the book that is a prequel, actually, to the game, A Hostile Takeover. So what do we know about this book? Well, again, it's a prequel to the game. In it, Harry left for Europe on July 18th of 2017, and Harry is there in the beginning of the Hostile Takeover. Also, the book spans a couple months, and it ends right where the first game starts, with Peter getting an alert about Fisk's arrest. So that gives us a lot of timing for this book, right? Mid-2017 to the point when the first game happens, and we'll discuss when that is when we get to the game. But trust me, for now, October 2018 is when that game is going to be placed. So therefore, we can put Hostile Takeover from mid-2017 to October 2018. All right, speaking of that first game, right? Revolutionary game, amazing, just changed everything, right? Incredible, incredible game. So let's look at some of the clues and things we learn in that game. Well, in the very first mission, we learn that his wrestling match was on August 11th of 2010, because you can see it in the poster there on the left. We also know from the game that he defeated several enemies before the game started, such as Rhino, Scorpion, Vulture, Shocker, Electro, the regular Rogues Gallery. Those things all happened before the game. But the game picks up on October 3rd of 2018, which you can tell by the calendar. You can see that it's October, but we know the year because the days align perfectly with 2018. So awesome. Then, after nightfall of that first day, and before the feast, while he's waiting for the feast, it leads then into the morning of October 4th. So we go from the 3rd to the 4th. Then on the 4th, he's evicted. He ends up staying in May's office, sleeping on the couch, and then waking up on October 5th. Then there's a City Hall bombing, and we jump 1 week forward to October 12th. And I know this isn't a very exciting screenshot, but that's what it looks like in the game. So 1 week later, then Peter enters the lab in Strong Connections, and he exits it the next day, so we're now on October 13th. Then there's a raft break-in, the Devil's Breath is released, and then we lead to October 14th, because they tell us 24 hours later. Then the morning after defeating the Vulture and Electro, we move to October 15th. And finally, there's a time jump after the final boss battle of 3 months later. So, I'm not going to read all this, but screenshot it if you want. But this is a complete day-by-day breakdown of the missions. Notice going from October 3rd to January 15th. And we have each of the missions in there and where they take place. So, very cool, right? Okay, so it's worth mentioning that there is a comic book tie-in called City at War, but basically it's just an adaptation of the game. So, it doesn't change anything of the timing. It's not going to be placed in the timeline because it's just an adaptation, but it is a cool 6-issue limited series. Just wanted to make you aware of that. But now we know that the Spider-Man game goes from October of 2018 to January of 2019. All right, what's the next thing? That's Spider-Man Velocity. So this was a book released in 2019, and it's a sequel set after the game's events, but prior to the DLC campaign. And I don't want to insult anyone watching this video because as gamers, you all know what a DLC is, right? But it's just an addition that you can buy that adds new missions to the original game. So we know that Velocity is in between those, and so that gives us some idea of the timing. So we're going to go for now with January 2019, and you'll see why in a second as we move to the DLC. The DLC was called The City That Never Sleeps. So what do we know about that? Well, again, it's an additional set of missions for the game. We know it takes place after Velocity. We also know it takes place not long after the first game based on dialogue between Peter, MJ, and Miles. So we're assuming a week's gap. That's an assumption, so I'm just saying up front. Some of these other things were really clear when the dates were. This is an assumption, but we're assuming a week's gap between the game and the DLC. So here are the 3 missions, by the way, the new missions that you get. So we're going to go with January 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Again, that is an assumption, but it nicely places things so that we're about a week after the game, and of course Velocity, which is the sequel to the game, but happens before the DLC. Okay, what's next? Spider-Geddon. Oh my. All right, so what do we do with this, right? Oh my. Well, it's a 6-issue limited series, really good. Check it out if you haven't seen it, but I'm sure anybody watching this video has read the series. But it is assumed to take place between the DLC, City That Never Sleeps, and the Miles Morales game. Why are we saying that? Well, because at the end of A City That Never Sleeps, Peter starts training Miles. And in Spider-Geddon, it's implied that Miles has already been training. And that's not much, right? It's not much to go off of, but hey, it's something, okay? Right? So timing-wise, it's therefore being assumed to be mid-2019. We don't have any other real timing to go off of, but we're going to go with mid-2019. So, okay, cool. Why mid-2019? Well, that's going to get more clear when we get to placing actually the Miles Morales game, but for now, hold on to this thought. Okay, so then we have Spider-Man Miles Morales. That's a book, and it is a prequel to the game. It was released in 2020, and here's the key. The Miles Morales game has been stated to be a year after the first game. So, we know that Wings of Fury is a prequel to the Miles Morales game, and in it, we have Miles complaining about the heat not being turned on until December 1st. That gives us some real clues. That's in the book. So therefore, if we say, well, it's probably starting to get cold, it's after the first snow, so we can go with an October timeframe. Okay, so that's in October. Here's where we finally really place everything, and where we get the fact that we're still in 2019. The Miles Morales game itself. So again, it was stated to be a year after the first game. So keep that in mind, and let's start breaking this thing down. So awesome game, right? Excellent game. So what do we know about it? Well, the opening of the game is on Christmas Eve. They're really clear on that, right? It's in the dialogue. So we know it starts on Christmas Eve. We then know the morning after I'm going to butcher it, right? La Noche Buena mission. Now we've moved to Christmas Day. Then the morning after the Time to Rally mission moves us to December 26th. Then the morning after the Breaking Through the Noise mission moves us to December 27th. And finally, Tinker, Tailor, Spider, Spy moves us to December 28th. And once again, we get that one's a lot cleaner, but 4 weeks later jump. So after the Battle for Harlem, we jump all the way 4 weeks later to January 25th. So once again, looking at a day-by-day breakdown, here's what we've got going from December 24th, where it starts, all the way to after that time jump on December 25th. So since we've learned that it's a year later, that's why we're still saying it's December of 2019, and it runs to January of 2020. And that then, officially lets us place things like Spider-Geddon in mid-2019 and the Miles Morales book in October of 2019 as well. Hope that makes sense. But really, the key is the distance between the first game, the Spider-Man game, and the Miles Morales game. That then, kind of shoehorns everything else into the timeline. Okay, Spider-Man 2. So what do we know about this? Well, it's a prequel comic, and it takes place sometime between Miles Morales and the second game. Now, we don't have a lot of solid timelines, so it's being assumed to be mid-2020, and again, we'll see why in a second that we're still in 2020, and this is what does start to get weird, how it looks like the Spider-Man 2 game is going to be in 2020, even though it's coming out in 2023. I don't know. I wish they would advance these games a little more real time, but nonetheless, that's fine. Same thing we're seeing in the Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse movies, right? The same issue. But so we're going to say mid-2020 for right now, because we do know at least a little bit about the Spider-Man 2 game. Not much, but we know a little, which is, they're saying, it is set 10 months after the events of Spider-Man Miles Morales. So they didn't advance the timeline very much, but if it's set 10 months after Miles Morales, we're talking an October-November timeframe. So again, the prequel comic, therefore, we're kind of just spacing in the middle. It's hard to get any more specific than that. But yeah, here's the bottom line. The timeline has not advanced as much as, real-time IRL. And we kind of see this issue in the Spider-Verse stuff, right? Because the first Spider-Verse movie, Into the Spider-Verse, seems to be a year and 4 months prior to Across the Spider-Verse. Yet in Across the Spider, and also in 2018, because we see 2018 dates. Yet in Across the Spider-Verse, we get dates in 2023. So I don't know. We'll see whether the Spider-Man 2 game actually gives us a year in it. That would be nice. But why are we putting Spider-Man 2's game before Across the Spider-Verse? Well, we can talk about that. So the trailer for the Spider-Man 2 game seems to show some unidentified Spider-Bots around the city, and the early impressions say that those are the different Spider-Verse characters. Not for sure. We're going to know in a few days, right, when the game comes out. But if that's the case, well, then you have Peter being confused, so therefore that would mean the game has to be before he shows up in Across the Spider-Verse, at least relative to his gaming universe, the Insomniac gaming universe. Because keep in mind, Across the Spider-Verse, remember, when they go to the Spider Society, they're coming from all kinds of different time zones. So it's very hard to figure out the dates relative to the other dates. So the bottom line is the Insomniac Spider-Man's gaming universe could be on a different timeline than Miles in the Into the Spider-Verse movie, for example. Because obviously Spider-Man Noir is in the past, right? So it's all over the place. But at least from a timing standpoint, it seems like the game is happening before the movie. So remember, he is in the movie. He shows up there looking at the earlier 8-bit games going, oh my word, that's some bad graphics. Also, another reason you could say, I guess, that the game comes before the movie is because the game is actually in the movie. But that's so meta that I don't know they were doing that intentionally. But hey, if we want to say that really is the game, then yeah, clearly Spider-Man 2 happens before Across the Spider-Verse. And I will at least mention the costume for the PS4 Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, does show up in Into the Spider-Verse. I'm not counting that as a connection, though. That's more of an Easter egg, because that's not really him, I hope. I hope he's not stuck in a cage. So yeah, I'm just mentioning that so people don't think we missed it, but I don't consider there to be a crossover with Into the Spider-Verse. It's only with Across the Spider-Verse. So who knows when it's happening? We just know it's post-November of 2020 for now. So there you go. This was not easy, and of course we're going to learn a lot more when Spider-Man 2 game comes out. But I thought it was worth doing this video in advance so people kind of have this in their mind as they go into the game and start thinking timelines, looking for clues, etc. So let me know what you think. Again, be brutal. Your comments are all welcome, no matter how harsh they may be. All right. So in the meantime, we're waiting for the Spider-Man 2 game to come out. So peace. And don't forget, October contest. Be a subscriber, leave a comment. 5 random winners will get to choose from one of the books or the steel books. Also, love to have you join us on Discord. I will leave a pinned comment with 2 things, actually. The pinned comment will have the timeline as it currently stands out on my Google Drive. So if you want to go download that timeline, you can. Also, if you want to join the Discord, you can see we're talking about the game. I'm sure there'll be a lot more conversation as soon as it comes out, but already lots of discussions. So love to have you join us on Discord. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we will all eagerly await the release of the Spider-Man 2 game.